Hey everyone, and welcome back to That Engineering Girl. Today I thought we'd do something really fun, and that is bust some engineering myths. So these are myths that people have actually personally asked me, and they're myths that I've come across, so I thought it would be really funny to bust them today for those that are interested in going to engineering or for those who just want a good laugh. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first myth that I get all the time is that all we do is wear hoodies and sweats. Like, that is the idea. Mark Zuckerberg has ruined our image, at least the software engineering side of engineering. He has ruined our image because everyone I come across automatically thinks I'm that hoodie and sweats girl and that I literally cannot wear anything else. And while that's probably my favorite attire, I'll give you that, I don't only wear hoodies and sweats. That would be I can think of so many scenarios in which it would just be so inappropriate to wear hoodies and sweats. For example, an interview, or a wedding, or a birthday party, or whatever it may be. Hoodies and sweats is not always the answer, although it might mostly be the answer. I'll give you that. However, we don't only wear hoodies and sweats, so busted that myth. Now, a second myth that I really want to bust is that we wear hoodies and we have our hood up and we program in the dark and we hack away in the terminal, like just madly typing away in the dark with your room in low light, like those scenes that you see in the movies. I feel like whenever I come across people, that's automatically how they imagine me coding, and that is completely inaccurate. I'm probably the antithesis of a coder because, generally speaking, coding is preferred to be done in the dark. I've noticed that from a lot of people, is a lot of people code in dark mode with the blinds drawn and their room lights dimmed and all of that. But I personally actually like my IDE to be in light mode and just have a lot of brightness to it. I leave my blinds way open so the sunlight can stream in and all of that jazz. So no, I do not hack away the terminal in a dark room and ruin people's lives. So that's another engineering myth busted. Now, a third myth, which has existed for a really, really long time, is that engineering is all men. And while even now, especially in electrical and software engineering, engineering is majorly made up of men, it's not all men. And it's not even so disproportionate that it would imply that it's really just all men. What I mean by this is, yes, there's more men than female or women in engineering. I can attest to this, but it's not so disproportionate in the sense that females are working their way into engineering and clearly we're being represented, maybe not as much as we should be, but we're getting there. And so engineering is not all men, and for any females interested in pursuing an engineering major, you'll be perfectly fine, you'll have your allies, and you know what? Men rock in engineering too. So that's another myth busted. Now, the fourth myth that I want to bust is that pursuing an engineering major automatically means that you can't have a good GPA. I know I especially thought this when I was choosing my major, when I was deciding what to do in university, and I automatically thought that, if I do engineering as a major, then there's no way that I'll be able to maintain good grades. So many people scared me. So many people terrified me of the idea of doing engineering as a major. But I can personally attest to the fact that you can have a good GPA. I won't say mine, but it's way higher than what other people will tell you, in the sense that, engineering majors can only get 2.9, 3.0, whatever it is, right? It's way above those numbers, and I'm really, really happy with my GPA right now. So do not let those people deter you. Do not let that myth deter you, because it is completely a myth. There are so many people in engineering that I know that have a 4.0, and they've carried that 4.0 to the end of their degree. So they've actually graduated with a 4.0, and engineering is no walk in the park. We know that, but it is not impossible, and it is not impossible to have a good GPA and do well academically. So that is another myth that I wanted to bust. Now, the fifth myth that I really want to bust is the myth that all engineering majors are genius at math and science and physics and all of that science-y related subjects. There's so many times that people have come up to me and they've thought that I was some mathematical genius and physics I could do in my sleep and all of those assumptions, and it just gives me such a good laugh because yes, we are generally good at math, and yes, we are generally good at sciences, but we are by no means geniuses, and we by no means have all the answers. And honestly, frankly speaking, engineers are good at problem solving. I can say 100% that all my peers are great problem solvers, but I cannot say 100% of all of my peers are great at math, because math is not the core of engineering. The core of engineering is problem solving, and if you can solve a problem, then you can find whoever you want to actually do the math for you. That is not to say that math is not important and physics is not important, because you will literally bang your head against the wall by how many times you have to do math and physics in an engineering major, especially a major like electrical engineering, where it is literally everywhere. Vectors are literally everywhere, sucking your soul. But like I said, it is not engineering, and you are not automatically a genius at math or a genius at physics, and you do not need to be one to pursue engineering. So that is another myth busted. Now, the sixth myth that I want to bust is that engineers in training, so such as myself, they cannot hold a conversation to save their lives. That their communication skills suck, and that we are the most boring people ever because we literally do not know how to talk. And that is the biggest myth, because some of the most interesting and intriguing people that I have met have actually been engineers. And being an engineer actually gives you a really interesting perspective on problems and things and events that you see around the world, so that when you actually have a conversation with an engineer, and I mean engineer, but not by the definition of you have an engineering degree, but I mean by the definition of you're at the core of yourself an engineer who is a problem solver and who likes to solve problems. Those people, they will blow your mind with what they can come up with the ideas that they have in their head, with the concepts that they filtered through. It's actually such an amazing time having a conversation with those people. So do not ever come across an engineer and automatically assume that they're not a good conversationalist, or they can't hold a conversation, or they're super boring, because you will be proven wrong if you come across someone that is truly an engineer at the heart. Now, the seventh myth that I wanted to bust is the idea that all engineering majors, they study all day long and they have no social life, and all we do is work, and no play. Now, this is a huge myth, because yes, engineering is a really tough major, and yes, you definitely need to put a lot of work in, but that does not mean that all you do is study. I can speak from example. There are so many things that I do that is not even related to my major. So for example, at the top of my head, reading, doing MMA training, just some things at the top of my head. None of these are related to engineering, and yet they make me feel good, they get me into the right mindset, and I really enjoy these hobbies. So no, we do not spend every minute of our day studying and working on our major and on assignments and exams and all of that. So we do not study all day long, and do not expect to study all day long when you are an engineering major. Expect to put in the right work to get the right results. But do not conjure up that image, that impossible image of just sitting at your desk all day long, 24/7, working away, banging your head against the wall. Because I know I had that image when going into engineering, but it is not true. If you manage your time right, if you're on top of your work, if you're even an average student, you will not have to do that. It's literally impossible to do that if you're not actually consciously aiming to study 24/7. So don't worry about it. You will have a social life. I know literally every person I know has a social life of some sort. It's honestly up to you to what degree you want a social life. If you want to meet up with friends maybe once a month, every single week, whatever it is, right? Because people make time for what's important to them. So keep that in mind. It's totally up to you. So don't be stressed out about that. Now, the eighth myth that I really want to bust is that no, we barely pulled all-nighters. The myth that engineering majors stay up all night long, cramming in assignment deadlines, cramming and studying for exams, that rarely happens unless you're that procrastinator, which will happen then in any degree, regardless if you're a philosophy major, psychology major, whatever major you are. If you're a procrastinator, then yes, you will be pulling all-nighters. But like I said, if you're even an average student who manages their time well, then no, you'll barely be pulling all-nighters. And for myself, I can say that I've never, ever pulled an all-nighter. Yes, I've had to work really hard. Yes, I've had to definitely manage my time, but if you do it effectively and if you do it right, then no, you will not need to pull all-nighters, and no, you will not be stuck with dark circles under your eyes for the rest of your life. So that is a huge myth that I really wanted to bust, because that is something that I was told a lot when I was deciding on pursuing an engineering major, is that you're gonna stay up all night long, and oh my god, I pulled an all-nighter every single day of every single week to survive, not even get good grades to survive, and I was terrified by all the stories I had heard. So I'm here to bust that myth and give you confidence in yourself and let you know that no, that is not even close to being accurate, and honestly it's highly dependent on the type of person you are, and so it's definitely not a given if you pursue engineering as a major. Now the 9th myth that I want to bust is something that I get all the time and all types of scenarios, and it always comes into play even though someone might not directly say it to me, and that is the assumption that engineers, and even engineers in training, so engineers and majors, as soon as you start your engineering degree, that you're a superhuman problem solver and you can literally fix everything, like literally everything. The amount of times I have gotten, so you know how to fix a fridge, right? So our dryer broke down. Do you know how to fix that? Because I'm an electrical engineering major, and the amount of times I've had to explain that there are so many things involved in electrical engineering, and no, I can't do that, or I can't do that yet, but I've had to explain to people that no, just because I'm an engineering major doesn't mean that I'm some superhuman problem solver that can literally fix any problem that I come across. Yes, engineers do solve complex problems, and yes, that is the definition of what an engineer is a problem solver, but that does not automatically imply that you can fix everything. You can try your best to fix everything, and I'm one of those believers that everything has a solution, you just need to try hard enough, but that doesn't automatically guarantee that the person you're going to will be that fixer. So no, we don't know how to fix everything, although we try. That is another myth busted. Now the last myth that I want to bust, so the 10th myth, is that engineers can only have hobbies related to engineering. And this is a huge myth that I believed myself, and I know a lot of people who are interested in engineering or are currently pursuing engineering play into this myth, but it's actually not true. Everything that you like does not have to be related to your major, because your major, your career, it's part of your life, but it's not your life. And so you have the right to be happy with things that are not related to engineering. For example, reading makes me really happy. I love to read. I'm an avid reader, but that's not even mildly related to engineering. It can be if I'm reading engineering textbooks or engineering material from a business perspective, but reading itself in general is not, and I actually don't read engineering material. So even though it brings me a lot of joy, it's not related to engineering, and at times I used to feel really guilty because I wasn't giving 100% of my time to my major. But remember, your major is not your life, and you have the right to pursue things that are not related to your major, especially in this case, engineering. Now, I'm gonna make a whole nother video on this, but this is not to say that do not pursue engineering hobbies, because they are critical, literally critical in your success. What I am saying though is all of your hobbies don't need to be engineering related. So that is the last myth that I wanted to bust today. I hope you had fun listening to the engineering myths that I have come across and that I busted today, because I had a great time actually brainstorming these, and I always have a good laugh when I come across these and people assume these myths about myself as an engineering major. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then.